When the Genesis name first entered the car world, it was merely the moniker of the flagship model of Hyundai's mainstream lineup. Sure, it was different from the typical Azera or Sonata sedan, offering rear-wheel drive and luxurious amenities, but other than that, what did the brand stand for? Was it just a luxurious Hyundai with a weird winged badge? Well, with the introduction of the GV70, we now know that Genesis is a well-rounded luxury brand that hits hard on value, driving engagement and luxury. The 2023 Genesis GV70 might be the most compelling luxury crossover on sale right now. Key features: 3.5-liter, twin-turbo V6. 375 horsepower. All-wheel drive. Specifications: trim, Sport Prestige. Model, GV70. Engine or motor, 3.5-liter twin-turbo V6. Horsepower, 375. Torque, 391. Drivetrain, AWD. Transmission, 8-speed automatic. Pros: stylish, unique exterior. Relative bargain pricing. High-quality interior. Superb driving dynamics. On its face, the Genesis GV70 could appear to be yet another run-of-the-mill compact luxury crossover in a sea of many, nigh identically driving crossovers. Some are front-wheel drive based like the Acura RDX or Cadillac XT5. Or, some are rear-wheel drive based, like the Mercedes-Benz GLC Class, or BMW X3. Whatever the case, it's a hot-selling segment, and it was a no-brainer that Genesis would want to be part of that crowd. Yet, Genesis's fantastic execution is what sets it apart from those other established competitors on the scene. Genesis opted to not go the Acura, Buick, or Infiniti route, which would have been revising a pedestrian front-wheel drive car platform for an upscale vehicle. Instead, the brand crafted a bespoke platform just for Genesis vehicles. Underneath, the GV70 shares a lot with the G80 sedan and GV80 midsize crossover, but unlike the GV80, the GV70 is strictly a two-row ordeal. Like the GV80, however, the GV70 has the same rear-wheel drive-based chassis, and longitudinally mounted 4- and 6-cylinder engines. It's a distinctly premium setup that we've seen on the BMW X3 and Mercedes GLC, and become the cornerstone of Mazda's upmarket aspirations with the CX-90. Still, using a common platform doesn't mean that end results of the related models will feel and look the same. Genesis opted to not make the GV70 merely a short-wheelbase GV80. From design to handling, the GV70 is its own car, sharing little visually with its longer sibling. Exterior-wise, the GV70 is striking, especially in the tester's satin white paint. The design language is a little softer than the GV80, although they do share many of the same design details. The triangular front grille is rounder and smoother here than the GV80. In sport trim, the GV70's blacked-out lower valance has a racy, sporty vibe. By comparison, the GV80 has a lot more chrome brightwork, lending itself to a more stately appearance. The GV70 is almost low-slung, resembling a sort of squashed-down, rakish Mercedes-Benz ML from some angles. It's sporty, aggressive, and striking to look at. I certainly had plenty of fun photographing it during my week with the GV70. Harking back to the introduction of the Genesis model line, way back in the late 2000s, Hyundai decided to sell a big luxurious sedan, alongside a more reasonably priced sporty coupe. Aside from both cars being rear-wheel drive and sharing an engine, the two cars didn't really feel all that related to each other despite sharing a name. One was a big luxury barge, the other was a fun-to-drive sports coupe. It seems like Genesis has somehow married those two paradoxical attitudes into its entire lineup. The GV70 feels both expensive and engaging to drive, yet it does so in a way that feels uniquely Genesis. The Genesis GV70 feels sort of reminiscent of other brands' efforts, but not as if the car is in search of its own identity. For example, the way the GV70 copes with bumps feels reminiscent of efforts from Mercedes-Benz. It's refined and hefty, isolating all but the most severe road imperfections. But, dynamically, it doesn't feel similar to a Mercedes, at all. The GV70 is remarkably well composed over curvy roads, as the suspension and chassis work well at making the Genesis's heft and substantial feel manageable. The GV70 can careen around corners as if it's a much smaller car. It's pleasurable and engaging, and dynamically, the Genesis GV70 is second probably only to one other good driving small crossover, the Porsche Macan. It doesn't feel like anything else in the segment, or as if Genesis engineers were aiming to create a budget version of a much more expensive competitor. The GV70, not including the recently announced GV70 electrified, comes with one of two engines. Under the hood lies a twin-turbo 3.5-liter V6. The V6 produces a mighty 375 horsepower and 391 feet-per-pound of torque. Lesser models use a 2.5-liter turbocharged engine, with a still respectable 300 horsepower. Both engines use a traditional torque converter 8-speed automatic, sending power to all four wheels. The Genesis GV70 is quick. Power comes on strong, and stays flat and balanced through the entire rev range. It is a well-matched engine to the GV70's playful chassis. The engine and chassis are so good, that the V6 almost feels slow. It's not that the 375 horsepower isn't enough for the car, but the driving character of the GV70 begs the question, what if this car had even more power? The Genesis does really well with the power it currently has. The chassis feels as if it could effectively handle far more power than it currently has. If Genesis chooses to make a bona fide AMG or BMW M crossover competitor, the GV70 would be a great base. I think that a GV70 with, say, the V8 engine from the Genesis G90 would beat Mercedes-Benz and BMW at their own game.